We're all surrounded by smart devices these days, but trying to get them all to work together, it's like trying to get a cat, a dog, and a goldfish to plan a party. It is just total chaos. But what if there was a universal translator for all of them? Well, that's exactly the idea we're diving into today.
Just think about that for a second. No more fumbling with a dozen different apps. No more gadgets that refuse to talk to each other. What if your lights, your heating, your security system, even your window blinds, what if they could all work together in perfect harmony? This isn't some far-off science fiction dream. It's the very problem a technology called KNX was built to solve.
All right, so here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we'll break down what KNX actually is, this universal language. Then, we'll see how it works with no central boss, which is super cool. We'll look at the key parts, talk about why it's such a huge advantage, and finally, get into how it all learns to speak the language.
Okay, first things first, let's talk about turning a building full of smart things into one single truly smart building. Moving from that chaos we talked about to real collaboration.
So what is KNX? The simplest way to think about it is like this. It's the USB for buildings. Seriously, it's not a brand, it's a protocol, an open standard. That means hundreds of different companies can make devices that all speak the exact same language. And because it's an official international standard, it's incredibly robust, reliable, and definitely here to stay.
Now, KNX didn't just pop up overnight. It actually has a pretty interesting history. Back in the 90s, you had these 3 different European standards all trying to do a similar thing. But instead of an endless tech battle, they did something really smart. They joined forces. They merged all their know-how in 1999 to create the KNX Association, which is what led to the powerful global standard we have today.
All right, let's get into what I think is one of the most powerful ideas behind KNX, its decentralized structure. In simple terms, there is no single master controller running the whole show.
This really lays it all out, doesn't it? In a lot of smart systems, you've got one central brain. And if that brain goes down, well, your entire smart building suddenly isn't so smart anymore. But with KNX, every single device, every switch, every sensor, every thermostat has its own little brain, its own microprocessor. So if one little piece fails for some reason, the rest of the system just shrugs and keeps on working. It's unbelievably resilient.
And this right here is the absolute key. The intelligence isn't stuck in some box in a closet somewhere. It's spread out, distributed through the entire network. And that's what makes the system so tough, so flexible, and so much more reliable, especially for things you really count on, like your heating or your security.
Okay, so we've established it's a decentralized language. But what are the actual pieces? What are the building blocks that make a KNX system tick? Let's take a look under the hood.
At the very heart of a KNX system is something called the bus. The best way to picture it is as the building's central nervous system. It's usually the single green cable, a twisted pair cable, that runs all throughout the building, connecting everything together. And what's really efficient is that this one cable handles both the communication and the power for a lot of the devices.
So how does the communication actually happen? It's a really simple and elegant 4-step dance. First, a sensor detects something. Maybe you flip a light switch or a motion detector picks you up. That sensor then sends out a tiny little data packet, they call it a telegram, onto the bus. Then, an actuator, which is just the thing that does something, like a light dimmer or the motor for your blinds, hears that telegram. And finally, the actuator performs the action. Sensor sends, actuator acts. It's really that straightforward.
And while that green cable is kind of the classic way to do it, KNX is also incredibly flexible. It can communicate wirelessly, using radio frequency, which is a lifesaver for older buildings where you can't just run new cables. It can even send signals right over your existing electrical wiring with Powerline, or zoom data across your computer network using IP and Ethernet. This adaptability is a massive plus.
Okay, that's all super interesting from a tech perspective, but so what? Why should you actually care about all this? Well, let's get into the real-world benefits.
The first one is a big one: efficiency. I mean, look at these numbers. By making everything work together smartly, like automatically lowering the blinds when the sun is too hot to help the AC, or dimming lights when there's plenty of daylight, KNX can lead to some massive energy savings. We're talking up to 50% on overall room control, and even more for specific things like lighting. That's not just good for the planet, that's really good for your energy bill.
And here's another huge advantage: choice. Because KNX is an open standard, you've got over 500 different manufacturers all making thousands of products that are certified to work together. This means you are never, ever locked into a single brand. You can pick the absolute best light switch from one company and the best thermostat from another, knowing they'll all play nicely together. That's what makes a system truly future-proof.
So yeah, to wrap up the benefits, it's pretty clear. You're getting a system that's future-proof and can grow with you, whether you're starting in one room or wiring up a giant office building. It adds a ton of comfort by taking care of routine tasks, and it boosts your safety and security by tying things like smoke alarms and door sensors all together. All right, for our last section, let's pull back the curtain just a little bit more and see how these devices are actually taught to speak to each other. This is where the real magic happens. In the KNX world, you've got two kinds of addresses. First, every single device gets its own unique, individual address. Think of it like a serial number. It's just for identification. But the real power, the real genius, is in group addresses. A group address isn't a thing, it's a function, like living room lights on or good night mode. A sensor shouts out a group address, and every actuator that's been told to listen for it reacts. It's the difference between calling one person by their name and shouting, "Everyone huddle up," to the whole team. And how does this all get set up? It's all programmed in a single piece of software called ETS. This is basically the mission control center where an installer links the sensor's command to one or more actuators using those group addresses. This is how you build all that cool logic and create scenes telling the building precisely how you want it to behave.
So there you have it. KNX is this common language that lets every part of the building communicate. It's decentralized, it's reliable, it's flexible, and it is seriously efficient. Which really just leaves us with one pretty exciting question to think about. When every part of a building can finally talk, what are we going to ask it to do next?